Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome back to this week's edition of the GNAT-TV News Project Summer Edition. I'm Griff McClellan. Once again, I'm pleased to welcome Andrew McKeever, the GNAT-TV News Director. Andrew is returning with us this week, so let's dive into it.
All right, yeah, well, we've been kind of busy trying to keep track of all the candidates who are running for statewide office, as well as keeping tabs on some of the local races too. But we've been able to schedule a lot of interviews with some of the statewide candidates from the lieutenant governorship level on down. And for folks who haven't had a chance to either go to our website at GNAT-TV, GNAT-TV.org, or catch some of the shows on one of our channels, we've had some really interesting conversations, and I'll start at the lieutenant governor level since the governor's race this year is kind of pretty well set. We have Phil Scott, the Republican incumbent, going up against Brenda Siegel, a Democrat who ran for lieutenant governor 2 years ago, is back to trying for the top job this year. But at the lieutenant governor level, we've had a big crowd of folks, and obviously a lot of this was triggered by Senator Patrick Leahy's decision to retire, which then prompted Peter Welch to decide to run for the Senate seat. And then that led to Molly Gray, the current lieutenant governor, running for Congress. So opening up the lieutenant governorship, which I think this year is going to be interesting to see, because if you think that Phil Scott is in his last term, if let's say Phil Scott wins the election in November, which seems fairly probable at this point, who's ever lieutenant governor is going to be in a perfect position to run for the top job. So on the Democrat side, we have Kitty Toll, a former state representative. Yesterday we did a conversation over at Founders Hall with Charlie Kimball, another current state representative. We've had David Zuckerman, who was a former lieutenant governor, ran for governor 2 years ago and lost to Phil Scott. And next week we'll be doing a conversation with Patricia Preston, who's the executive director of a nonprofit organization called the Vermont Council on World Affairs. Over on the Republican side, earlier today I did a conversation with Gregory Thayer. He's a former alderman from Rutland. He's running along with Joe Benning, who's a state senator, who's been in the legislature since 2010. So 6 candidates. It's an unusual number of people on both sides, but there's more to come. On the Senate side, for the U.S. Senate, Peter Welch obviously is running. He's being challenged in the Democratic primary by Isaac Evans France. Over on the Republican side, we have 3 candidates. Gerald Malloy, who we'll be talking to next week. Yesterday, we did an interview with Myers Mermel, who's from Manchester. And last week, we had a conversation with Christina Noland, the former U.S. attorney from Vermont. And the 3 of them will have, I think, a very lively race for the Republican nomination. The U.S. congressional race is a very hot one between State Senator Becca Balint, Lieutenant Governor Molly Gray, and 2 other challengers, Sinead Chase Clifford and Dr. Lewis Myers. We've had conversations with all of them. On the Republican side, there are 3 candidates: Liam Madden, Erica Reddick, and Anya Tino. State's attorney is another interesting race. Charity Clark, who also is from Manchester, is facing off against Rory Thibault, the Washington County state's attorney. We did all 3 candidates who are running for Secretary of State: Chris Winters, John Odom, and Sarah Copeland-Hanzas. And all really interesting stuff. The Secretary of State race I found pretty interesting. That's usually kind of a backwater race. Nobody really knows who's running for Secretary of State. What do they do? Well, with all the conversations about elections, election fraud, and the integrity of elections that surfaced in 2020 following the presidential election that year, all of a sudden the Secretary of State position is sort of taking a lot more prominence, and those 3 are having a really interesting race. I'll leave it there because it's been a lot of work, and a lot of folks I think will find all of those discussions very informative and very interesting. But you can go to our website and see them all. There's a special elections page we set up, and check it out. Primary's coming up on August 9th. Early voting is already underway. You can go to your town clerk's office and get the ballot if you're not going to be around on August 9th to vote in person. So it's important. This is a big year. A lot going on statewide, and we'll get to the local stuff maybe in September. There aren't too many competitive local elections, with the one exception, the county sheriffs. And we had a conversation with the three candidates who are running in the Democratic Party primary. There are no Republican candidates, so one of the three very likely is going to be the next sheriff. Lieutenant Joel Howard currently works in the department. He's being challenged by two guys who ran 4 years ago, Bo Alexander and James Gully Jr. That's a conversation I think folks who are interested in learning more about how the county sheriff's department actually works, which is kind of different from what you might think, I think we'll all find kind of interesting. So that's what I've been doing.
All right, well, thank you, Andrew. And while we're on the subject of politics and elections, please, again, I know I've said this before, but we need to reiterate the importance of voting. So please, get out there and vote. Remember to do so. The primary, as Andrew mentioned, is coming up on August 9th. However, absentee and early voting is already open. So please, don't forget to do so. Anyhow, in terms of recent news, the Manchester Skate Park was recently awarded $75,000 in funds in an American Rescue Plan Act with one condition, and that is to finish building and modeling the park this year in 2022. This was done to complete the final phases of the state park, and the park, which has been hugely successful and popular for local skateboarders, initially opened in 2019, and now the park was designed to be completed in stages so that an eventual second and third phase would eventually each be added, giving the park more skating features for skateboarders of all ages. The current plan from ARPA would make the second and third phases each become a reality if, again, completed this year. Grindline Skate Parks, which is headquartered in Seattle, Washington, is the designer and contractor of the park. So yes, the skateboard park might be getting some pretty cool additions pretty soon. So we'll have to stay tuned on that.
Absolutely, and as you say, it's been very successful. Every time I go by there, there's always a big crowd of people using it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll see if the second and third phases can come to fruition. While we're on the subject still of Manchester, Vermont, as I'm sure most of you know, Manchester was hit pretty hard with a massive thunderstorm this past Tuesday afternoon, as many gusts of wind and heavy downpours caused damage among trees and electricity throughout the town. The storm damage sent local firefighters and first responders scrambling all across the area, and according to the Manchester Journal, damage included a downed maple tree at the Dana Thompson Rec Park, which also struck a children's playground. Now, the playground isn't severely damaged necessarily, but it will be closed until the tree can actually be removed. And additionally, the main concern is numerous tree limbs have fallen on wires all across town, causing power outages. And even smoke was reported apparently at the Kimpton Taconic Hotel right on Main Street. So it came and went within about half an hour based on what I witnessed, but it seems that it caused damage all throughout town. But anyhow, moving on, the Manchester Street Fest will be coming back. If you haven't seen it already, we recently posted a video announcement promoting this event. Go ahead and check it out. If you haven't seen it yet, the event is happening tomorrow night from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. in Manchester on Main Street. The street will be closed for local businesses and nonprofits to all get together and have a good time. It's going to be an epic street fair. I went to the last one a couple weeks back. If you all have nothing going on, I highly encourage you to go. It's a great way to socialize, again, support local businesses, enjoy some great food, and even some great live music as well. So that's another event going on pretty soon.
I'd just like to point out one other event that's going to be going on Friday afternoon as well. It starts a little bit before the street fair at 4 p.m. up in Danby at the Smoky House. There's going to be a party, sort of a send-off for longtime executive director Jesse Piles, who'll be leaving that post after, I think, 9 years there. They have an interim director in place, but there'll be you can pick blueberries, and I think there's going to be some bands playing or some jamming going on, and generally just a good time party until, well into the evening. So folks who might be up at that end of our coverage area might want to go over there to Smoky House and check that out.
We're going to switch gears just a little bit here, but I think it's very important to address COVID cases. We haven't done this in a while. Now, obviously, COVID cases around Bennington County have been fairly low recently in the past couple weeks, or months, I should say. But the reason we're bringing this up again is because of the recent news regarding the Omicron BA.5 subvariant. It is considered one of the most highly transmissible variants yet, and it's been recently spreading a lot in California. So just remember to stay safe, remember to get vaccinated, stay up to date with all your shots and your boosters. But if we continue to stay safe, we'll all be okay. Because cases have been low, like I said, so just keep that in mind.
And remember what happened last year around the same time. The Delta variant showed up. Just as we were thinking that after the vaccines were available and, the worst was over, all of a sudden, not so fast. The virus wasn't done with us yet. We may have been done with it. And I certainly can't help but notice as I go around town now, the percentage of people wearing face masks is definitely in the low digits. And I think a lot of people have might not want to throw them all away just yet.
Yes, and health officials nationally in the United States have recently been issuing warnings about this new subvariant, just simply as a reminder to people, because we've all seemed to shift our focus away from COVID to all sorts of other events going on in the news lately. So it's, if anything, just a reminder to stay safe and remember that COVID is not quite over yet. As much as we'd love for it to be, it still exists, and we still got to be careful. Moving on now, let's discuss upcoming local events. One great way to visit this, again, is by visiting GNAT-TV.org/events. It's our page where you can find all sorts of events happening throughout the next day, week, month, or many months. So please remember to check it out. For example, this week we have the Fireman's Carnival, which will be taking place this weekend starting on Friday. This will be occurring in Arlington, going from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., so pretty much all afternoon and evening. This will be taking place at the Arlington Rec Park. Additionally, Saturday the 16th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., there's a bird walk at Hildene going on. If that interests you, go for it. Cars and Coffee will also be happening at Riley Rink in Manchester this Saturday as well, starting at 8 a.m. And as usual, plays will be taking place throughout the rest of the summer and even into next fall as well. These are obviously happening in Dorset and Weston. So please, if these interest you, go for it. Go check them out. Go support your local community. And remember to stay tuned by tuning into our show, by visiting GNAT's website, and by going out there and seeing what your communities have to offer. Anything else going on in the news we need to know about?
Yeah, nothing too much that I've been following, but one other thing I thought was kind of interesting just before we have to run here. Many folks will remember that, must be going back over 10 years or so now at this point. There's a proposal to build a Turkish spa over on a lot across from the town hall on Main Street at the northern end of town. And that never panned out, but on Monday, the Development Review Board granted a permit for an 80-room hotel and spa at that site, a different design completely from what was proposed back then, which ran into a certain amount of local controversy and never got really off the ground. But this proposal might be something that we'll want to keep track of, and we'll have to see how that goes. I couldn't help but notice that it was a story published in the Monday edition of the Bennington Banner, but it's available on their website. That's where I found out about it. So it'll be fun to keep track of that. It'll be interesting to see if that goes forward.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you so much, Andrew. We're glad to have you back.
Good to be back.
Thank you so much. That will do it for today's edition of the GNAT-TV News Project Summer Edition. For GNAT-TV, I'm Griff McClellan.
And I'm Andrew McKeever.